Alright, for our Haines talk, we wanted to discuss the question, do the benefits of nuclear energy outweigh the consequences? The first type of nuclear energy is fission. So fission basically is when the nucleus of an atom is split into smaller parts, which frees photons and neutrons in the form of gamma rays. So like with this uranium-235 reaction, we see it's being like broken down, and it releases 3 neutrons of kinetic energy, which is what's formed. That's that type of energy that's formed in this type of reaction. It is extremely dangerous though, and it needs a lot of energy to happen. Without control rods in this type of reaction, there would be a nuclear disaster. But it is extremely productive, and it has a lot of benefits. Like 1 gram of uranium 235 produces 2 to 3 million times more energy than 1 gram of coal, and it does though produce radioactive waste, which takes a long time to get rid of. So that's another consequence. Another type of nuclear energy is fusion, and with fusion, it's when light nuclei are forced together, causing the formation of heavier nuclei, and a lot of energy is produced in this reaction. It is very beneficial to use because with certain types of fusion reactions, like hydrogen reaction, the only input is hydrogen, and there's not a lot of radioactive outputs. But the only problem with that type of a reaction is for it to occur, you need heat that is 10 times more powerful and more strong than the heat of the sun, which is very hard to produce in our atmosphere. But it does create a lot of energy, so it is very beneficial. It's just hard for us to reproduce.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about how nuclear factories work. So Kara already talked about this, but just to review, uranium atom split, which is fission. Heat is produced, which turns water into steam. Steam drives turbine generators, and electricity is produced. Okay, so to go into more specifics, the cool water comes in here from a river, lake, or ocean, or any body of water. It goes up through here, and there's heat in this component, which creates condensation, which falls down this way and goes through here, and then the excess water leaves because it's warmer. This water comes in here, goes through here, the pump, the heat exchanger, all that stuff. It comes up here and it goes through the control rods. The control rods are rods of neutron absorbing substances used to vary the output power of the nuclear reactor. And then they go through the reactor core, which is where the nuclear reaction takes place. The reactor core is the portion of the nuclear reactor containing the nuclear fuel components. So the reaction takes place there, it goes back in here, and then here it's warm now and it creates steam. The steam comes up this way, and the steam forces the turbine to move, which creates the electricity.
Okay, there's lots of pros and cons of nuclear energy. Some of the pros include that there's less pollution than other forms. For example, nuclear power plants don't emit carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxides, or nitric oxides. Low operating costs. Once the plant is actually built, it doesn't cost that much to actually run it. It costs $1.51 per kilowatt hour for it to run. Technology is already in use. They know how to make it. They have the ability to make it. There's 437 nuclear power plants in the world, 69 in construction, and 61 currently in the United States that are operating. And the nuclear energy and the production of it meets the large demand for electricity. 1 atom of uranium is highly reactive, and so it holds a lot of power that can meet that demand. Okay, some cons include that the initial building cost of the nuclear power plant is very high. It costs about $9 million just to build it. There's a high risk for accidents, and when they do occur, the errors are deadly. People can just die on site, or they could have radiation poisoning, burns, develop cancer. It takes a long time for the construction of the site. It takes about 5 to 7 years just to build it. And there's also some unknown risks that we don't know because we haven't used it for that long. And then obviously the risk of terrorism is there. If the terrorists were to get a hold of the nuclear energy and the nuclear resources, they can build a weapon. and the United States government does not take responsibility for any errors that do occur. If a power plant were to explode, there's no one to take care of people that are hurt or anything. The minerals are finite, just like coal, but and according to statistics, nuclear reactors can only last about 200 more years and provide electricity for that long. And then the waste lasts a long time. Plutonium's half-life is 24,000 years, which means that half of its energy is still there after 24,000 years. And uranium's is 704 million years.
An example of a nuclear reaction disaster is Chernobyl, where there was flawed reactor design with control rods causing a power surge and too much pressure, and there were poorly trained personnel. This became the largest uncontrolled radioactive release in a civilian operation, with a lot of radioactive substance released into the air in the following 10 days. There were social and economic consequences in Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, and there were more than 7 million people affected. Another nuclear disaster was in 3 Mile Island, where there was the worst accident in an American commercial nuclear power plant when there was a failure in the non-nuclear section of the plant with an improper water flow, and this provoked major changes to emergency response plans, reactor operation training, factors considered for engineering, and protection against radiation.